Robert Downey Jr.'s first starring vehicle since ending his tenure as Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe didn't quite set the box office on fire. In fact, Dolittle, a new take on that classic children's character who talks to animals, is shaping up to be one of the biggest bombs of 2020, and it's only January. Its opening 4-day total came in at just under $60 million worldwide. And while that's respectable for a January release, Dolittle had to do much better to have a solid chance of breaking even. The movie was budgeted at an eye-watering $175 million, and for reasons we'll get into momentarily, it likely ended up sporting a much heftier price tag than that. On paper, the film looks like a winner. Downey in the lead, an all-star cast including the likes of Rami Malek, Octavia Spencer, and Tom Holland voicing all of those adorable animals, and an Oscar-winning writer-director in Stephen Gaghan. So why did Dolittle flop so spectacularly at the box office?
We have no choice but to embark on this perilous journey.
The first signs of trouble came when Dolittle, after its initial test screenings, was found to be in need of heavy reshoots by Universal. In order to better connect with family and overseas audiences, the studio decided that the flick was in dire need of more talking animals, more slapstick comedy, and if the critics are to be believed, a whole heck of a lot more fart jokes.
Something smelled wrong, and that's coming from a guy who loves the smell of butt.
For undisclosed reasons, Gaghan did not return for these reshoots. Instead, the studio tapped Chris McKay and Jonathan Lee Bisman to shoot the new footage, which also certainly pushed the movie's final budget well north of $200 million. But not only did the reshoot push the flick's budget into the stratosphere, they delayed its release by 9 months and foreshadowed a troubling fact. Universal wasn't quite sure who it was making this movie for. Now, don't get us wrong, Gaghan is a fine writer and director, but the fact that he was hired for Dolittle only serves to illustrate that this was a film conceived with no clear audience in mind. His previous credits didn't even approach the realm of family-friendly. His stock in trade is serious dramas like Havoc, Traffic, and Syriana. It was Gaghan's cut of the film that went over like a lead balloon at those test screenings, and Universal's attempt to course correct by bringing in McKay and Lee Bisman to ramp up the silliness was obviously the wrong move. The film was all over the place in terms of tone, described as a grand adventure for the adults and fart and poop jokes for the kids. Ultimately, it failed to win over either audience. To make matters worse, the film debuted in January, a traditional dumping ground for flicks that studios know nobody is going to want to see. This, coupled with its troubled production history, caused critics to view it with suspicion before they even set foot in the theater. And once they did, those suspicions were confirmed. Poor critical notices aren't always a determining factor for tentpole films, but in regards to Dolittle, it's hard to make the case that the film's reviews didn't punch some cannonball-sized holes in its hull. Critics weren't just unkind, they were absolutely brutal. As summed up by the words of NPR's Scott Tobias, Dolittle is not a film. Dolittle is a crime scene in need of forensic analysis. Something happened here, something terrible, something inexplicable. This one had been stabbed multiple times, and only a thorough behind-the-scenes examination could sort out whose fingerprints are on what hilt. To put things into perspective, consider that, as of the making of this video, Dolittle stands at 18% on Rotten Tomatoes. The universally reviled Cats, which is swiftly becoming synonymous with unbelievably ill-conceived fiasco, sits at 20%. If Dolittle had opened to no competition whatsoever, the damage might have at least been mitigated, but compounding the flick's myriad problems, it had the distinct misfortune of opening against a franchise movie that had no trouble generating word of mouth of a much more positive nature.
Now it's time to be good men. Who in the hell want to sing that song? Good man, what you gonna do?
Nobody ever accused the Will Smith, Martin Lawrence buddy cop pictures Bad Boy and Bad Boys 2 of being high art, and it had been nearly 17 years since the former flick's release. But Bad Boys for Life, which has been in development for years, and which was made without the involvement of franchise director Michael Bay, arrived to surprisingly solid reviews, and built a strong pre-release buzz which resulted in it overperforming wildly. The modestly budgeted flick has already reeled in over $100 million, which is the second best showing in history for Martin Luther King Day weekend. The surprise smash all but sealed the box office fortunes of Dolittle, which will now have to put up an unreasonably strong overseas performance to even come within shouting distance of breaking even. It's a stunning reversal of fortune for Downey, who went from starring in the highest-grossing film of all time, last year's Avengers Endgame, to a film that will be remembered as a towering flop, if it's remembered at all. Check out one of our newest videos right here, plus even more Looper videos about your favorite stuff are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the bell so you don't miss a single one.